Obesity isn't just a public health crisis. It's a biologically defended state, one that resists traditional treatments and demands smarter, safer interventions. That's what this video is about. At Skye, we're developing the first CB1 targeting antibody designed to engage the mechanism that drives weight gain without crossing into the brain. Nimacimab isn't just another anti-obesity drug. It represents a new frontier in how we think about fat metabolism, safety, and long-term care. We're sharing this because we're at a pivotal moment. Our Phase 2a CBeyond trial is fully enrolled, and we've expanded it to include a 26-week extension. Later this year, we expect top-line data that we believe will address what the field needs most: proof that you can deliver real weight loss without the CNS risks. For scientific and commercial leaders looking beyond incretins, we hope this is the start of a much deeper conversation.
While CB1 inhibition is well understood to have distinct metabolic mechanisms that can complement current incretin-based therapeutics, I'd like to spend a few minutes discussing something less clear. That is, how our antibody-based CB1 inhibitor, nimacimab, differentiates from other CB1 inhibitors. The difference relates to the interaction with the receptor itself, a subtle distinction, but one that may have important clinical implications. CB1 signaling occurs via the orthosteric site, which is the primary active binding site for CB1 agonists, including the body's endogenous ligands. These endocannabinoids have widely been reported, both clinically and in preclinical studies, to be upregulated during fasting or pathological states such as obesity, and are a key driver of overactive CB1 signaling and its associated metabolic pathology. Current clinical small molecule inhibitors compete with endocannabinoids for binding to CB1 at the orthosteric site. When the endocannabinoids are at a low enough concentration, this competition favors the small molecule binding. But as the concentration of endocannabinoids increases, this competition may start limit binding and ultimately impact the efficacy of these small molecule-based therapeutics. This mode of CB1 binding and inhibition is different for nimacimab, which binds in a distinct area of the receptor known as the allosteric site. This is away from the orthosteric site, where it inhibited CB1 signaling in a non-competitive manner. To highlight these distinct mechanisms, we recently ran a series of in vitro experiments to test the potency of these different CB1 molecules with different concentrations of endocannabinoids present. It is clear that under low and arguably physiological levels of endocannabinoids, both inhibitors have a similar level of inhibition. However, when the concentration is elevated from 50 nanomolar to 2,000 nanomolar of CB1 agonists, mimicking the potential elevated endocannabinoid levels seen during obesity, the small molecule-based inhibitor exhibits over 100-fold reduction in its potency, while nimacimab is able to maintain a very similar level of potency with only a 1.6-fold reduction. How could these findings translate to the clinic? While the peripheral concentration of endocannabinoids in the specific population of obese patients being treated with these inhibitors has yet to be determined, we believe that these small molecule CB1 inhibitors may face a significant hurdle to maintain a sufficient concentration in the periphery to inhibit CB1 signaling while not allowing too much to leak into the brain and trigger neuropsychiatric side effects. This pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic balance becomes more challenging to achieve as the local concentration of endocannabinoids increase. This is a hurdle that nimacimab will not have to navigate for two reasons. First, nimacimab is a non-competitive inhibitor that functions mostly irrespective of endocannabinoid levels. And secondly, perhaps most importantly, nimacimab is peripherally restricted orders of magnitude more than the small molecule CB1 inhibitors. Thus, we have the flexibility to dose significantly higher without approaching CB1 inhibition in the brain.
The endocannabinoid pathway is a conserved evolutionary mechanism that helps modulate energy balance and metabolism. CB1 receptor antagonism was validated as a viable pathway for weight management by rimonabant, which showed more than 5% weight loss in half the subjects and more than 10% in a quarter of subjects in global phase 3 trials. However, due to significant brain exposure, it also resulted in neuropsychiatric side effects. The new generation of CB1 antagonists aims to restrict the CNS exposure and side effects while maintaining and improving the positive effects on weight. Monlunabant data shows weight loss at 16 weeks, superior to rimonabant and similar to oral semaglutide. But being a small molecule, some leakage across the blood-brain barrier still occurs, causing unwanted side effects. Nimacimab, an antibody, shows less than 1% penetration into the brain in primate studies. In the phase 1b study, 63 patients were treated with increasing doses of nimacimab for a month and showed no neuropsychiatric adverse events. In the ongoing phase 2a study with 26 weeks of treatment, a battery of cognitive, mood, and neurologic evaluations are being conducted. An independent data monitoring committee has reviewed unblinded data regularly and has completed 3 reviews so far without any concerns being expressed. Nimacimab has a wide therapeutic window, which we will continue to assess in a subsequent study. We expect to continue de-risking the mechanism at commercial doses along with demonstrating efficacy.
We've met with and conducted multiple interviews with obesity doctors. From specialist endocrinologists to primary care physicians, these doctors have treated hundreds, if not thousands, of patients with obesity and other obesity-related diseases. One of the main questions we asked these doctors was how they felt about weekly injectable therapies versus the potential of daily oral drugs. This is important because most of today's effective weight loss drugs are currently weekly injectable drugs such as Wegovy and Mounjaro. However, there are new versions of these drugs that may be coming to the market soon that tout themselves as better options because they are daily oral medications. But are they really better? The clinical data to date for these oral drugs show that they are not quite as effective at driving weight loss as their injectable counterparts. Also, it seems that these drugs cause even more of the unwanted gastrointestinal side effects like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, which is one of the main reasons that lead people to stop weight loss therapy. Most of the doctors we speak to are excited about the potential for these daily oral medications, but they also say that the weekly injectables are just as convenient, and in some cases, even more convenient than the daily orals. In fact, many of the doctors said that they would likely still use the weekly injectables as first-line therapy and only utilize oral therapies for patients that can't tolerate needle injections or prefer oral medications, but they don't see this as a large proportion of their patients. When asked what they thought was the biggest unmet need in obesity medications, doctors said that they needed more options than just GLP-1s. They believe that drugs that can increase energy expenditure, target fat mass loss, improve lean mass preservation, and more directly modify the metabolic dysfunction caused by obesity are the types of drugs that need to be developed to fill the significant unmet need in the anti-obesity medication landscape.
The CBeyond study is designed to do what no prior CB1 targeting trial has done: demonstrate mechanistic validation and clinical relevance for a peripherally restricted CB1 antibody in obesity. This is not a repurposed program or a class retread. It's a clean slate designed to directly answer the 2 questions that matter the most. Can you deliver meaningful weight loss by targeting CB1 receptors outside the brain? And can you do it with a safety profile that supports chronic use? CBeyond is a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled phase 2a study. All patients receive 200 milligrams of nimacimab subcutaneously once a week for 26 weeks. We are evaluating adults with a BMI of 30 or higher, or 27 with at least one weight-related comorbidity who are otherwise non-diabetic. The primary endpoint is % change in body weight at 26 weeks. Secondary measures include body composition, biomarkers of metabolic health, and detailed safety monitoring. Importantly, we've now expanded the study with an additional 26-week open-label extension to assess the efficacy and long-term safety and tolerability of nimacimab. This extended readout will be critical in shaping how nimacimab could be used in real-world obesity care.
Nobody will argue that the development of GLP-1 receptor agonists like Wegovy and Mounjaro for weight loss has been a massive breakthrough for the treatment of obesity. But the truth is, it's still not enough. Patients can lose a significant amount of weight on these therapies, and if they can stay on these therapies long enough and maintain the weight loss long enough, it has been shown that these patients can see even more health benefits, especially as it relates to improving their cardiovascular health. But the reality is most people who take these drugs don't stay on them long enough to reap these benefits. What does this mean? It means that these drugs have adherence and tolerability issues, resulting in a large proportion of patients not reaching the weight loss potential promised by these drugs. So despite the success of GLP-1 therapies, we still need new drugs that are more tolerable and can provide more sustainable weight loss and ultimately keep the weight off long enough so that patients can gain the long-term benefits associated with long-term sustainable weight loss. We believe that nimacimab has the potential to meet all of these truly important unmet needs in this therapeutic space.
So what you've seen today is more than an overview of nimacimab. It's a case for why the future of obesity treatment can't be built on incretin hormone-based biology alone. Nimacimab is different by design. It's mechanistically distinct, clinically focused, and it's a scalable platform. And it's grounded in a safety profile that sets a new benchmark for CB1 inhibition. We've shown how CB1 inhibition can be reimagined. It's potent enough to drive metabolic change, precise enough to stay out of the brain, and flexible enough to fit today's treatment modalities. Our phase 2A trial is fully enrolled. Top-line data from the 26-week readout is expected later this year, and an extension study is underway. With each of these milestones, we're defining what a best-in-class CB1 inhibitor looks like. We're not chasing the incretin class. We're building the next option. Thank you for watching. We believe in a future where patients have more choices and better ones. And if you're ready to help shape the future, we're ready to talk.